Hi, welcome back. We're here looking at section 3.3, graphing lines. So, I have some steps here, I have an example. I'm going to talk about some hints along the way, and we'll look at some more examples after we finish this board up. Alright, first step, find any 2 points. That's going to be our key step. That's the one I'll spend the most time talking about. After you find your 2 points, plot them, and then use some sort of straight edge and draw a line. So here's my first example. 2x minus 3y is equal to 6. So we need to find any 2 points. You can see I've already found them, but let me tell you how I got what I have here for you. Whenever I see x and y on the same side of the equal sign, I like to pick 0 for x and 0 for y. So this kind of goes back to what we looked at in the last section. Okay, we want to pick, and we're going to, in the last section we had half of an ordered pair, and we used that to find the other half. Here we're going to choose half of an ordered pair for ourselves, and use that to find the other half. So I picked 0 for x, and when I plugged that in, 2 times 0 is 0, so that dropped out. I divided both sides by negative 3 and got y is equal to negative 2. And then I turned around and plugged in 0 for y. Again, 3 times 0 is 0. Divide both sides by 2 and we get x is equal to 3. Now, that works really, really well as long as x and y are on the same side. The only time you can't plug in 0 for both of them, like I just did here, is if you plug in 0, you get another, and you get 0. So if you put in 0 for x and you get 0 for y, then you're done with 0. You've already used it on both sides. So then you would have to pick something else. What could you pick? Anything you want. But you really can't. I just suggest 0 because it's simple. Once I have my 2 ordered pairs, I go ahead and graph them. So 0, negative 2 is down here. 3, 0 is right over here on the x-axis. And I draw my line. And there we go. We're going to look at a few more examples, a couple of other things to look at. And yeah, we'll be done. This is another pretty quick little section. Sections 1, 2, and 3 here really all flow together really nicely. So, you know, in section 1, we learned how to plot the points. In section 2, we finished ordered pairs. Here, we're just doing all of it. We're doing ordered pairs and then making our graphs. All right, so for our next example, I have y is equal to negative 3x plus 1. So this one's a little bit different from the last one because now the y is by itself. So these are really our 2 kinds of graphs, and then actually we'll see a couple of different ones here still in a little bit. So anyway, let's do this one. Here, since y is by itself, it's actually going to be easiest to just plug in numbers for x. So I'm going to plug in 0 for x, and then I plugged in 1 for x. So when I plug in 0, negative 3 times 0 is still 0, and I'm just left with the 1. When I plug in 1, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 1 gives me negative 2. And as long as I'm careful with my negative signs, this still works. So I have my 2 points. 0, negative 1, and then 1, negative 2, and you can see I tried to draw my line. It doesn't always work great on the whiteboard, but try and make them nice and straight. That's what we're really looking for here. Lines are definitely straight. All right, I've got some more examples, so give me a second to clear the board. All right, here's my next example. Again, we have y by itself, but this time I put in a dreaded fraction. There's really good news, though, for these fractions. These are going to work really nice, actually. So just pay attention. I'll give you a great suggestion here to deal with the fraction, and it'll all work out well. So since y is by itself, I chose to plug in numbers for x. The easiest number to plug in is still 0. So I plugged in 0. 4/3 times 0. Hey, there was the fraction. Anything times 0 is still 0. We're left with a negative 1. So that's 1 point. I have a second one here, and you can see it. I clearly picked 3 for x. Okay, that's the number I chose. Why did I choose 3? Because it matches the denominator. Because what happens when you do 4/3 times 3? Well, what happens is if you think of this as being 3 over 1, the 3's cancel. And so all we're left with is the 4. 4 minus 1 is no big deal. We can do that subtraction, and we get 3. And so it turns out, if when you have a fraction there, if you always pick the denominator for one of the values that you plug in, you never even have to work with the fraction. And I'm going to guess that it makes everybody happy. So anyway, I plotted my points, 0, negative 1, and 3 is way over here. And you can see I made my line. All right, I have 2 more quick little examples to look at, and then we will be all taken care of. All right, here are my last 2 examples. And at first glance, they barely look like what we've been working on here. We have x is equal to -3, and we have y is equal to 2. So these are definitely a little bit different because they each only have 1 variable in them. So if you have one of these, get the variable that you do have all by itself. And what that tells you then is that no matter what happens here, x has to be -3. No other options for x. X has to be -3. What's y? Quite literally anything you want. So I chose 0 and 2 for y. Why did I pick those? I don't know. They weren't that big. But x has to be -3. So you can see then I have my ordered pairs, -3, 0, and -3, 2. And I end up with a vertical line. And anytime you have an equation with just an x in it, it's going to end up being a vertical line like this one. As opposed to that one, y is equal to 2, that's going to be a horizontal line every single time. I recommend get the table, set up those points, figure them out. It gives you a way to just kind of check and make sure that you're getting the right answer out of it. So here, y has to be 2. What's x? I chose 0 and 3. Again, it really doesn't matter. You can pick anything you want, but y has to be 2. So I have 0, 2, and then I have 3, 2. 2 ordered pairs, there's my horizontal line. So that's graphing lines. Remember, just find your 2 points, plot them, and then draw your line. So thanks and good luck.